Hey folks, on to attempt number 3. So basically today I want to follow up on a video 2 or 3 days ago that I had to re-upload because I deleted it like an idiot, called The Black Box. This is the second part of that series, which itself is only going to be maybe 3 parts at most. And this is about the idea of by what mechanism. That's what I call it. And so if you ever find yourself in a debate with somebody and they are adamant that you are wrong about whatever it is you're talking about, again, much like the black box, this could be about development, design, religion, politics, how to make a sandwich, how to bake bread, whatever. It can be about anything. But most times I feel like people, and this includes myself, almost any criticism I ever make of people includes myself, don't quite realize how little they know about something. My favorite recent example, when I say recent, it was about 5 months ago, but close enough. I was having a conversation with a mathematician at work, and I had been reading an article that had erroneously said that there were hundreds of millions of accidents. It was something ridiculous, like a year, a month, something like that, right? But the article had said just for California. It had erroneously, the sentence was just miswritten. They were trying to explain how California is dangerous. They used the statistic for the world, and it all falls apart. Now, at a glance, I live in LA. Extremely dangerous. People drive up on the sidewalk and hit trees and run red lights, barrel through crosswalks. I mentioned before in this video series, in the last month, I've literally almost died at once at least. Other times probably were less close than they felt, but at least once it was extremely close. And so for me, it was like, oh, of course, yeah, sure, no, obviously there are that many accidents going on in LA, right? Clearly, well, in California, clearly. And without missing a beat, because math is his forte, the mathematician looks at me and goes, there's only how many people in California? I remember thinking at the time, how many people are in California? And so I looked it up, and it was like 40 million. I thought, 40 million? That would mean everyone basically is having accidents, and multiple accidents at that. That seems very unlikely. And so then I started doing some research and realized that this thing that should have been absolutely clearly preposterous to me, damn it, I used that word, oh well. But suddenly I found myself thinking that this thing that was previously completely reasonable to me was ridiculous. That how did I ever believe that even for a second? And I find that when I have conversations with people who are utterly confident, if you ask them, by what mechanism does that work? It almost immediately falls apart. Frequently, that's all I've said, or something similar to that, like how, specifically how. And it just falls apart. Their confidence immediately craters because they realize, when thinking about the specifics, they have no idea. They don't even know why they think it does that. Usually it comes down to sports teams again, where basically, well, the red team said it works, or the blue team said it works, and that's as far as anyone takes it. But when you think about it, most of the time you have no idea how anything works. Like, it's strange. You're in this house of mystery. Look around your house right now. Your computer, any part in your computer, you can probably vaguely explain how some of it works, but your CPU, even understanding the scale of it is mind-boggling. Game consoles, which I admit are other computers, your monitors, your lights, something as simple as a halogen light, simple, or incandescent, or I don't even know what these right lights are, technically. They change colors, so maybe LCD, I don't know, LED. Something as basic as your stove, your fridge. Do you know exactly how your fridge works? And not even exactly to the point where, like, oh, how many units of heat are transferred through these coils or something like that. I just mean, like, in even a slightly vague sense, can you look to a friend and explain them the mechanics of your fridge in such a way that A, you will be accurate, and B, they get it? And I think not many people can for just about anything. And I feel like when you recognize that even the things you are most confident about, you have basically no clue about, life becomes a lot easier because you realize that in many ways you're an idiot. It's fine. The beauty of being an idiot means that there's things for you to learn. And the thing is, the smarter people that I meet, and that sentence sounds a little butchered, but I'm going to stick with it. Basically, when I meet someone, the smarter they tend to be, the less they are confident about. And I find that really interesting because the other direction is definitely true as well, is that the less somebody knows about just about anything, the more confident they are in every answer that they give. It's very weird, and I don't know what creates it. I'm sure there's some rule or law or something like that that already defines this phenomena, but it's it's almost like the act of researching things makes you realize you don't know anything about anything. And so the more you do that, as if that's your profession, the more you do it, the more you become what would I say? But basically you become kind of not jaded, but the idea of knowing becomes less and less reasonable to you. It becomes more of a hopeful goal for some future generation that's got like chips in their brains or something like that. But for you, with your simple, mushy bits, you can only understand well enough to accomplish whatever specialized tasks you have before you. And I feel like this skill of asking, how, why, when, where, all those sort of things. I believe there was who, I suppose. Uh, Asking those questions used to be something we all did. When you were a little kid and you walked around with your parents, you would ask them why constantly. Just why does this work this way? Well, child, it works this way because of this. Well, why does that work that way? Oh, well, it works that way because of this. And it would just go on and on. And it was just this relentless pursuit of understanding what the core root of knowledge was. And I feel like eventually, for a lot of people, it just gets beat out of them, and then they just start taking things for granted. Where it's, well, of course, this is something that works, and I can just take that for granted and move on with my life. And I feel like that people lose more from that than they realize. That asking yourself what the mechanisms are for anything is this beautiful adventure that you can take on even the most mundane of things. Understanding how the IKEA furniture in my house is made, like this press board, like the seeing that was one of my favorite shows on TV, was How It's Made. Watching the complex sequence of events that leads from a tree trunk to pressed board. It's something that seems so mundane on the face of it, but then when you go and research it, it's just amazing. One of my favorite examples is something that I kind of want to make a video about sometime, but unfortunately, Engineer Guy did one infinitely better than I could ever do. He's amazing, damn it. Anyways, so it's microwaves. I remember when I was a kid, there was this fear that if you stood too close to a microwave, much like a TV, my mom would tell me that it was going to do some sort of harm to me, that there was microwave radiation that would emanate from this machine, and if you get too close, it would start cooking you. Now, I don't know if she knows about the inverse square law or any of that sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not even going to say that I do, because that would be the antithesis of this video, right? But it could stand to reason to think that if you stand, a distance away from your microwave, that the radiation would become so stretched that it wouldn't hurt you as badly as if you were right next to the generator. And if there's a jump cut anytime soon, it's because my cat's going to want out. So be prepared for that. At any rate, so time passes, and I think to myself one day while I'm looking at my microwave, why does it have a grate on it? I understand that it has these holes for me to see what's on the other side, but why is the grate there? Because when you think about it, you don't quite grasp why something exists. It's sort of, for instance, if you're out walking on the road and you notice the little black tar circles near a stoplight, and you start asking yourself, what do those do? Clearly, there's something that interacts with the car so that the lights know to turn, but what are they? Are they magnets? Are they pressure plates? What do they do, right? And then as you start to try to explain those things to yourself, you start recognizing problems like, well, would that work with a motorcycle and a car? Like, do they both possess, if it were magnets, does both the car and the motorcycle possess enough magnetic metals that they actually could trigger it. And if it was a weight thing, are motorcycles really heavy enough to do it? How light could a thing be to cause the traffic light to change, right? I almost want sometimes to stand out there and see if it is weight, which I don't know if it is, would that do it? And that's something I want to research one of these days, right? I want to look up exactly how they work, and I imagine it's fairly varied. But taking a walk back to the microwave, I had seen microwaves my whole life. 2 decades of time passed where almost daily I would see a microwave, and I would not think a thing about it, like how it worked. I didn't know why the food rotated besides, looking nice. I didn't know why there was a grate on it. I didn't know what dangers it possessed. And I never thought to look it up. And even now, the most basic level of my understanding of the grates is that the holes are such that you can see through them, but that they also break up the microwave radiation. So basically that the wavelengths are, and again, don't take this for granted, but my understanding is that they are as wide as the holes, so that when they hit the holes on the upper and lower points of the sine wave, they would get broken apart. And so you would have this diffuse energy passing through as opposed to a complete microwave ray. Now, is that BS? I don't know. This is something that I read about years ago. And so now, even now, this thing that I once felt somewhat confident about, not so much. And again, if I remember, you should go watch that Engineer Guy video. But this is the point, right? Is that every single person I've ever met that is incredibly confident about things, when you discuss them with them in detail, almost nothing holds up to scrutiny. Every time you ask them how something works, it falls apart. It's strange because it's like you're in this complicated world where 100 million things could be affecting any one thing. Cat wanted out. Now where was I? Yes. Like, to think that this little bundle of mush could be so fantastically powerful that you, dear person, have figured out the secrets of the universe. And that's not to say to give up. It's quite the contrary. I feel like people need to first accept that they're idiots, and then rejoice in that, and to use that as an inspiration to learn things, to read things, to never be satisfied with any particular answer, to see things. And this isn't about being skeptical for the sake of being the devil's advocate, because I hate that. I've said before that hate is not a word I use very much, but the devil's advocate thing that people do deserves its own video. It's coming one of these days. Hate it. But being skeptical, but basically positively skeptical or optimistically skeptical, finding joy in skepticism, finding a friendship in the unknown. And I hope, if 2 people see this video, or 3, whatever, if even one of those people just takes away the joy of knowing, or hopefully willing to accept my suggestion. I'm not saying this is objectively true, because again, that would be the antithesis of this video, but my subjective opinion that we are all idiots, and that's not a bad thing. It should be a point of inspiration, just like I'm as thick as a twig, and that shouldn't mean that I should just give up. I still try to lift weights, and I'm still trying my best to start eating better and things like that. Seeing the things that are our weaknesses should be that observation should be what inspires us to improve. It should not be seen as something that's wrong. The obsession with perfectionism and the idea that we know is bad, I think, it's wrong. And that's kind of what I'm going to leave it on. I think, and it's been my experience, that basically, if not literally, everyone is an idiot. And that's fine. Some of us are less idiots in particular topics than others, but I've never met anyone who was utterly confident in something and had any valid reason to be confident in it, with the exception of, like, creative endeavors. Literally, if you're the screenwriter that made a film and you're confident in why something happened, that makes sense to me because you're literally God in that situation. But unless you are literally God in any particular situation, you probably don't know. Like, you probably think you do, but I can almost guarantee that if you use non-charged Google searches even, you will find very quickly that your understanding of the topic is pretty flawed. And that's fine. I still like you. That's fine. Hopefully you still like me. But yeah, that's my rant for today. Tomorrow we'll talk about the state of the channel just in terms of subscribers and all my goals and stuff like that. But for today, I'm hoping that at least a handful of people got to be called an idiot and didn't feel bad about it. I hope. Yeah.